Well, I've shown a number of meals that I make. I haven't shown my staple, which is beans and rice. I cook this up in a pressure cooker as separate batches and then combine it for my meals. Um, Beans, because I prefer either black or brown beans. I prefer brown beans a little bit more than black beans. Need to be soaked beforehand. So this is the night before I want it to have it for lunch tomorrow, and so I'm putting them in the pressure cooker. I find with this pressure cooker design, about 3 cups works well, though I can do 4. It gets a little bit messy. Then to soak them. So to soak them, you need to fill it up with water so the beans are covered, and then add a couple of inches to that. 2 to 3 is about good because the beans will expand as they soak up water. Though I'm doing this the night before, if you forget the night before or have some other thing that means that you can't do it beforehand with as much time, doing it with a couple hours before you need to do it, you can either fill this with like boiling water or just put this on the stove for a couple minutes to heat up the water, because the warmer the water, the faster it's going to soak. So that works decently well. I'm not sure the nutritional abilities of that. It seems like you lose more of the stuff coming out of the beans than with just soaking it overnight. So I'll soak this overnight, and it's about 9:30 now, and I'll probably start cooking this around 11 tomorrow. So it only really needs about 8 hours, and with a fast soak you can get it down to like 2 to 3. But doing it for longer is just fine as well. So it's now the next day, and after soaking these overnight, I'm going to pour off the water that was in them. And when I was mentioning that these are my staple food, and beans and rice really is. I probably eat about half of my lunches and dinners that I eat at home are beans and rice. And the other ones, if I'm eating like a packed lunch, that's almost never going to be beans and rice unless I have access to a microwave, because eating them cold is not so great. So I don't pour off all the water just because it's annoying to do so, and I don't want to use a colander. And then I fill it up to, I think about 3/4 of an inch above the level of the beans is a good amount, because you don't want too much in it for multiple reasons. One is that one of the main issues with beans is that from the pressure cooker, they can come out of here and can get really messy everywhere. So that's the reason you don't want to fill this up all that much. And the other is later when I'm done with these, I don't want to pour off much water. And the beans aren't going to expand really much more than their current amount. And so this water, you just want to put in just enough water so that they stay covered the entire time while pressure cooking. And so they don't, when the water boils off, it doesn't get above the beans don't get above it. So then I'll put this on the stove. After it comes to the full steaming boil in the pressure cooker, I'll turn it down to, in my case, about the number 6 I find works well with this stove. And actually this burner, the other burner, needs a little bit higher. And then let it sit for 20 minutes. It takes about 10 minutes to come up to this steaming boil, and then 20 minutes of cooking, or maybe a bit longer for these. Pinto beans, black beans will be about 18-19 minutes, so you can go longer. These pintos, it's about 20-22 minutes. I like to make sure they're fully cooked. After the 20 minutes of cooking, I waited 30 minutes for this to cool down naturally. You don't have to let it cool down naturally. If I'm not in a time rush, that's what I'll do, just because it, I don't know, doesn't require effort, and I also find it works better for straining out the water. And you can also just like dump cold water over it or take the top off, though taking the top off can cause interesting results with beans getting splattered over the ceiling. So it's not advised for beans. Rice, it works a little bit better. And the issue that cold water can have is that it can warp the metal, though I haven't found that to be an issue, and I do that sometimes. And then I poured off a little bit of the water just to reduce the amount of liquid going in with these beans. As you can see, there's still some in here, and I definitely want to maintain that because there's good juices in there. And then I'll put these into these containers for storage and then into the refrigerator for them. Then it's time to cook the rice. I prefer brown rice, the flavor of it, as well as it being healthier for you. And I find that though I think the max that this pressure cooker can hold of rice or rice-like things like lentils is about 6 cups. I generally do 4 or 5 cups because it doesn't take as long to heat up, and actually, more importantly, there's less spouting coming through it. So add the 5 cups of rice, because that's the amount I'm making today. Then add 2 cups of water for every cup of rice. And I find that isn't quite enough water, and some rice will get burnt if I only use this amount. So I find adding an extra cup or cup and a half is about the right amount of water. And then put the lid on and set it on the stove to heat up to a boil. I cook it for about 10 minutes, maybe 11 minutes after it's reached the full boil, and much longer than that and it starts to burn because there isn't any excess water in it. It's just the amount of water in there. And one important thing to note is that it is really important to clean this between beans and rice. One time I didn't clean it thorough enough and it started spouting stuff all over the place because some of the beans had gotten in the little release spout. Because it's just a rinse. I don't really wash it other than up here. Oh, and I forgot something important before this gets hot enough to boil is add some salt, because it really helps the flavor to have some salt. I often forget this because I'm not particularly sensitive to salt, but I know a lot of people have adding salt really improves the flavor. I don't find it so much that way. I often forget, and probably about half the batches I do are without salt. So I actually did cool down the rice with cold water because I happen to want to get it done faster because I'm hungry for lunch. And sometimes this will have water still in it, but it will soak up over time. At least it means it didn't burn it. And as with the beans, I'll be putting these in containers and then into the fridge for later use. And I'll also be eating some now, and when I did want to cool it fast because I'm hungry for lunch. So here is the meal that I have. Because I just made both of these, they're still hot from cooking, but if I'm making them without the cooking right before, I'll put the beans and rice in the bowl and then heat it in the microwave for 3 to 4 minutes. And to go along with it, during the fall and summer when there's good tomatoes from home, I will chop up some tomatoes and put them in. But I'm putting in salsa now because that's what I have, along with some cheese. And sometimes I'll have a tortilla and eat it in that, but right now I'm just eating it in the bowl. And in this case it's a bit soupy because that's what I was cooking it from. I just happened to get the kind of really liquidy part for the stuff in my bowl. I don't like eating that in the tortilla. It gets really drippy. I'll also have some sort of vegetable with this. In this case squash, but I'll also have the cabbage salad is a common thing I'll have with this, and I enjoy it. So yeah, it's a meal that I rely pretty heavily on, and it can be super quick. Just like heat it up for 3 minutes And in that time, you get your vegetable out, cut up some cheese, put it in under 5 minutes of total prep time from starting. Once, of course, you have the beans and the rice in the fridge.